Gabriella, you ready to go? This is going to be a great one. You excited?
I am beyond excited to share this time with you and your listeners.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, you are a life engineering coach, which I think is pretty interesting in itself. I really want you to explain we've all heard life coach. So, what is a life engineering coach?
It's a hybrid between this is what happens when an engineer turns into a coach. You never stop being an engineer.
You overanalyze?
No, but I'm very good at conceptualizing and putting things in patterns that people can follow,
Mm,
if that makes sense.
it does.
So rather than working with, I love patterns. I see patterns, and that's how I guide my clients towards where they want to go. So frameworks, patterns, not necessarily plans, because I'm very much into being in flow as well, but really looking for patterns of how we are designed. Number one, that's a very
Mhm.
engineering word. How we are designed to create, and also I think that the main part of the engineering is the belief that we can create extraordinary things if not only we believe in it, but if we commit and put the effort. I think as engineers, we rarely expect results to be overnight. We
Mm.
are willing to pilot, to test, to course correct, and to commit, to invest, and then to track. And I think this is where the engineering comes into place when it comes to different aspects of our lives. Having the commitment, the grit, the investment, and believing that you can start with a vision and then birth it through that commitment and investing.
Love it. Would you say you have somewhat more of a logical perspective being an engineer?
I do. What is interesting, my oldest logo as a coach was the two sides of the brain, the right and the left. So I'm a combination of both. I would say I started my life more using my logical side, my left side of the brain. But when I started my own personal development journey and then into the coaching, obviously I developed also the right side of the brain. So I think this is what appeals to most people is that combination of both. And what I love about harnessing both parts of the brain is that it's a lateral thinking. You can actually explain concepts to right brain people and left brain people. Even if I can give you an example, it's the same. I'll give you an example of what I mean. When I'm talking to spiritual people, I can say, well, your life is not divided in sections. You are one energetic being. So if you are vibrating sacrifice or obligation in one aspect of your life, that's going to impact every aspect of your life. Just because your aura is one, it's not divided in sections. But if I was giving a talk at a lunch and learn in a corporation last month, and I wanted to explain the same concept, but I didn't want to use your aura. So I said, well, we're talking about marriage at work because I know you divide your life in sections, but you have one nervous system.
Mm.
So going back to what you asked, is that logical is the ability to choose my words depending on who I have in front of me. I think that comes from harnessing both parts of the brain.
I think it's great. Honestly, my dad's an engineer, so I grew up with an engineer. I understand some of that world.
What kind of
Within,
engineer is he?
he's a test engineer. I know he worked a lot of stuff in like cockpits and like helicopters, airplanes, and whatnot. Super, super interesting. What's even more interesting is that I have some of that in me, but at the same time, I'm very creative. I'm a creative person. I'm an artist by nature. Since I was a little kid, I always used to draw and sketch and all that stuff, and now I'm a graphic designer. So it's like I was kind of born this way in a weird way, but I was born into a family with an engineer as well. So I kind of get where you're coming from, and I'm thinking of like life coaching. One of the reasons I ask you that about being logical is I can completely respect the logical part of it because I think when it comes to life coaching, especially relationships, we put emotion into a lot of it, and it drives a lot of our decisions whether it should or should not do that. So I like my coach to be logical. I like my coach to pick out the patterns because they're going to say, listen, like the chances of this happening are what? Here's the pattern that, it's just someone that can call out things that are most likely to happen instead of putting emotion into it, which I know we all do when we're all kind of like in it ourselves. And so it's always great to have a coach with a little bit of logic behind some of their responses. So I appreciate that.
You know, in order for us to change anything, right, or to improve, let's put it that way, we have to accept the current situation. But the way the brain works is that to accept, for most people, the first step is to understand or justify. So I can use logic to understand or and justify, then I can accept it, and now I can move forward and improve it or
Mm,
course correct. And that's how the engineering comes into the service of human development or psychology, if you want to call it.
I
Yeah.
love this. It's gonna be a great conversation. Except current situation, I could see that being a huge issue for many, many, many people, including myself, including my wife. Like we like to have control of our surroundings and things that are happening to us, but I think like that causes anxiety and expectations, and like expectations are a really dangerous word. I think once you realize that all you can control is what you can control, like type of situation, like your life becomes that much better. How often do you deal with that with your clients about people just wanting control of everything around them?
More than you can imagine.
Yeah.
I think that the best is to go in stages rather than tell somebody, okay, let go of control. That could be scary, obviously, because it is a coping mechanism that is protecting you in some way. So the first thing that when it comes to control, I find people are attached to are the results.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than saying to someone, okay, let go of the results, we want to replace the need to control by trying to control something else. So I rather say, okay, the results are not up to you. Okay. They really are not. You don't control when you'll get pregnant. You don't control if you'll get that promotion. They're not. They're up to whatever you believe in. Higher cause, the universe for me is God. That's what I believe. But you can control the path, the effort along the way. So if you need to control,
Mm-hmm.
rather than telling someone, drop all the control, let's just reframe what you're controlling. Rather than controlling the results and the expectations of how they should look like and when, obviously, let's just focus on controlling what you can do every day and making sure that the path that is in your control, you're doing the best, you're becoming the best version of yourself. Let's reframe controlling that rather than the results. And then once you shift to that, at a certain point, you're going to come to a place, and this is a beautiful place to be, where you're going to say, I don't even want to try to figure out the path anymore. Let me just focus on what's presenting itself today. Let me just keep the horizon of where I'm going and trust that what needs to happen today is going to present itself. Whether because we booked this meeting and it went well, but if we wouldn't be able to connect, then obviously that didn't. So I'm responding more than planning and creating. Let's just be in respond. Let the universe be my personal shopper, if you might.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me just share with the world what I can do, and then the universe will send me opportunities. I'll respond to them rather than putting so much effort in trying to figure out what's the right path or the right plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about three different levels to have this transition in a smoother way rather than going from, you know, from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. So we're gonna get into your book here momentarily because I really can't wait to dive into that. But you just kind of reminded me of what I try to do personally is I think consistency is a word that we hear a lot of, and it's still underrated. I think if you just show up and continue to show up over and over again, you're going to get the results that you want. Maybe not in the beginning, maybe even not in the middle, but ultimately you will end up getting the results you want, or perhaps even better results or different results that you weren't expecting. So if you keep showing up, something I try to do is keep showing up and then keep putting myself in situations that keep putting myself in situations to succeed. And if you keep doing that, ultimately you're going to be successful, right?
That's right.
So let's switch gears here just a little bit. We'll dive back into that in a little bit. So you started off as a chemical engineer, as you just mentioned, engineering.
That's
Now
right.
you're a life engineer coach, and you're also a brand new author, which I think is absolutely incredible. Give me give me a quick synopsis of how that journey began.
That journey of writing the book, you mean? Or
Of from a chemical engineer to a life coach to an author now.
you know what? I'm so glad you asked because I really need to look back several times. Obviously, I've been asked that question to 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 realize how incredible life is and how we are being led from one stage to another. So I was working as an engineer for 40 years, and I was hitting my midlife crisis where everything seemed to be perfect on the outside. I'm happily married for 26 years. I have three beautiful children, uh, not so children anymore. And everything was right on the outside. I was making a V on everything I was told I need to be happy, have a good job, make money, be happily married, have a family. And yet there was a void inside me that I couldn't explain. So the first,
I've heard this a lot. I just want to repeat everything that you were told, not everything that you felt, but everything that you were told. Sorry to cut you off, but I want to put that back out there because I've heard this story a lot. So please keep going.
yeah, that's true. It's the formula we're given and it gets passed on from generation to generation to be happy. So um, I was feeling this void inside and I didn't know what was the problem. So I thought I'm the problem, right? That's
Mm.
what the brain does, by the way. We're talking about justifying situations. When I don't understand, then the brain will default, well, I need to understand to accept this. We were talking about that in the beginning. So if I cannot find another reason, then it must be me. And I thought, I'm the problem. I'm doomed for dissatisfaction. That's what I
Mm.
believed, right? Um, and then, of course, I started feeling that I want to do something else, that I'm not aligned in my career. I have to say I was successful, had a few big achievements, but it was far from being my genius zone. I was more interested in training people actually than looking at, the process. I was working for Intel. So that also wasn't easy because you see, when you work for Intel, you get the whole package, the car, the computer, the salary, the traveling abroad to other sites. It's very, very lucrative. So leaving this behind was a challenge. And people were saying, what is she doing? She's out of her
Mm.
mind, right?
Mm.
Um, so I realized I wanted to become a coach and I certified simply and I took a leap of faith. I had the support of my husband, not the belief of my husband. And that's a big distinction because sometimes, I hear people say, well, he doesn't believe in this. He doesn't have to. He just need to support you because you are a team. It's very difficult otherwise. Um, the belief came later when he said, I can't ignore the empirical data. She's helping people. They're coming back. So she must be doing something good. Um, and I certified as a coach. And in 2010, one thing I remember saying to myself, my youngest at that time was 1 year old. And I remember saying, it's interesting because I'm 50 now. I don't want to be 50. I use that number for some reason. I don't want to be 50 and find myself that now that the kids don't need me as much, I'm asking myself, what do I do with my life? That's because one option was, well, you can just let go of work. You don't need to find something else. You're busy. You have three young children. But I didn't, the thought of just postponing the search, the soul searching, and the course correction of my career felt terrifying because I knew that postponing means I dealt with it later. And
Mm.
it's not how I live my life. So long story short, I started building my coaching in 2010 from literally scratch, one brick at a time. And it took time. It wasn't easy because I had zero knowledge in business. I was always an employee.
Keep showing up, right? Consistency.
Keep showing up, working on my mindset, shifting from being an employee to being self-employed. And just like you said, consistency and showing up, grit.
And now you're the author of the book, Becoming a Power Couple.
That's
I'm
right.
really okay. I'm dying to get into this. I'm kind of almost mad at myself. It took this long to get into this. What in the world is a power couple? And then we're gonna go even deeper than that.
Hmm. So a power couple is a couple that their synergy is so powerful that the sum of them, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 10. They feel that together they can accomplish anything. So when they're bored, they go, what else can we create? They are this
Mm,
creative force. And they, these are the couple that people say, what are they doing? Right? What are they taking? um, so that's what a couple is. Now, in more practical terms, we arrive to that phase that would be the last phase of a relationship, not in the last phase, because after there's nothing, but is after we overcome the second phase of the relationship, which is the power struggle. When we need to work on the relationship on ourselves, we arrive to that beautiful synergy between two people where you feel that together you can do anything.
mm.
I mean, the work never stops, but the heavy work, I would say, is in the middle phase of the relationship.
How can you recognize a power couple from the outside? Do they talk to each other a certain way? Like, are they using specific phrases that are kind of like, "Yep, that's a power couple." They talk to each other like that.
Um, okay. So some clues, the way they look at each other. If when they are in an event, they spot each other and they smile.
Yeah.
Someone told me, that every time I mention your husband, you have a smile on your face. When I ask you how's Ellie, you smile. Um, Body language, if they touch each other, not sexually, but the other day I was at an event and someone wanted to give my husband a drink, and my husband wasn't paying attention, so I wanted to point him. I didn't. It's unconscious. I didn't realize I put my hand on his hip and I called him by his nickname. So you can see the other thing. So that's among themselves, but you also see that power couples are usually very creative, individually and as a unit. They like projects together, whether they're renovating their home or each one of them in their own career. Um, they usually have a good relationship with their children.
Mm.
So there's a ripple effect in the family to become more like a power family. You can sense people's energy.
Oh, 100%. I'm a believer in that. I'm trying to figure out if I'm in a power couple relationship here. So, one thing that I really appreciate from my relationship, and I think it thrives off of it, is alone time. I think it's important to have alone time to create on our own, as well as together. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast. I have the support of my alone time and to be creative and have conversations with wonderful and amazing people like you. Do you find that perhaps like alone time and not like 100% of the time together all the time is beneficial for a power couple?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Usually there's one that needs more than the other one.
Hmm.
It's rare that both will say we both need it the same. I can say that in my relationship, I'm the one that needs it the most. And because my husband knows and he doesn't get triggered, it's not, oh, she doesn't like me, she doesn't love me, she doesn't want to be with me. That's more in the power struggle phase when we're working on our triggers. But once we work on ourselves and we understand that it has nothing to do with us, then it's so much fun to be able to give to our partner what they need and
Hmm.
respect that and encourage, not just respect, encourage. Like tell the other person, why don't you just take half a day and go whatever, right?
Yep. Yep. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's one.
do.
yeah, that's one thing I've learned. I've only been married for a couple years now, but it's one thing I've learned. Hey, go to the spa, go get your nails done, go for a run or whatever you want to do. I'll watch the baby, I'll do whatever you need to do at home. And then they come back and they're in a better mood and they're refreshed and they got their alone time, they got their thoughts out and whatnot. And they got things done that they've been meaning to get done. And everyone's just benefits from that. I think alone time is super important and it's very
Very.
underrated.
Especially if you are an introvert. I'm very introverted. I charge myself alone. Um, and don't forget that for intimacy, and that ties into the last pillar of the four pillars of becoming a power couple. Intimacy requires two different forces, as Esther Perel explains very well. We want the togetherness, but we want the separate. We want that motion. So that's fantastic. Having that motion of time alone and time together. We could be in the house even, and somebody's reading in their bedroom, the other one is watching TV in the living room, and that's totally okay.
Yep.
And then, but we also is okay as long as it's not the default all the time, right?
Right. Yeah. That's not a power couple.
Yeah,
That's a living situation.
that's right. That's two people living separate lives. So
Yeah, we don't want that. As far as a power couple goes, would you say it's is it natural or is it something that you have to work on to achieve power couple status?
so this is where the engineering mindset comes in place, right? Because so in one word, you have to work on it, like
Mm,
anything worth of having, right? Any relationship, even with your children, with your friends, you have to work on those relationships. The biggest misconception is that if I marry the right person out of love, that love is going to carry me throughout the years. And if I don't feel that love all the time, we are not meant to be together.
mm,
That's a huge misconception, because the initial love, which is the honeymoon phase, usually lasts 6 to 12 months, 2 years, sorry. And after that, we tend to enter the phase where we start triggering each other. We're less focused on, I want to be with you all the time. I want to learn more about you. That deep desire to know you, it's what characterizes falling in love, is the desire to know another person and to share everything. Now we're starting to trigger each other. So we automatically start pulling apart. And if we don't know how to navigate that phase, we cannot get into the power couple phase.
mm.
So the biggest misconception is that love, it's all it needs and it will last forever. We want to understand that love needs to be rekindled. So how do you rekindle that love? It is through the commitment and the work. Work means you are committed to do what needs to be done. Being committed doesn't mean because we have vows, I'm staying. Staying and doing nothing, it's not commitment. When I say commitment, I mean investment, right? So the investment, and that's where the engineering mindset comes in place, the investment in the relationship with a proper framework allows the love to be rekindled and to be able to transition from that power struggle to that power couple. And
Love
it's a
this.
lot of fun, because it's not just to get to that power couple phase. That same work is a work that you wouldn't be able to do with another person or alone.
Yep.
People say, oh, I need to work on myself before I can have someone or before I marry. Yeah, you could do an initial cleanse, but there are triggers you will only encounter when you're living with someone. Being in a committed relationship and being invested makes you a better person, because now you are helping each other grow as a person, resolve your own blocks, and that creates such a bond of trust and such union that is sacred.
Mm.
So, of course, it takes investment.
You're
It does
reminding
take work.
me, yeah, you are reminding me of like one of the things I'm most proud of, if not most proud of, honestly, of my relationships, the fact that no matter who you are in a relationship with, you're going to have issues with them. However, I found the person that is willing to just sit there and hammer them out with me, whether it's just like a conversation, whether it's like, hey, let's go talk to a therapist, like let's figure this out. Let's figure out how to communicate with each other better. Let's try to do this better. Someone who's constantly looking to improve the situation. There's so many people out there. I've been in relationships. I know a lot of people have been in relationships where it's just like that person just like conflict. I'm out. See ya. And they just don't stay to work on it. And it's just like you're gonna have issues no matter who you're with, right? And it's just like so many people just bail, and it's probably one of the reasons the divorce rate is so high is because it's like silent conflict. I'm out of here. I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to work on this. I don't want to look in the mirror here. I'm just bailing, right? You probably say that all the time.
That's right. You said it so well. It's that constant gratification or thinking that marriage should be easy. Who
Mm.
said that? Even if you love each other, who said marriage was, I mean, why would it be easy to live with another person that is so different than you? I can't think of any more difficult situation, but yet it's given to us for a reason. That's why the challenge is so big, but the reward is even bigger, right?
Mm.
And what you said, I'm willing to do the work, I'm willing to ask for help. All that willingness is the commitment. In other words, I'll do whatever it takes to make
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah.
That's commitment. You're not just, see, otherwise it's like you're interested. What does it mean? Sometimes I ask my clients, are you interested or committed? Because interested means, well, as long as it works, I'm in, right? Committed means I'll do whatever it takes to make this work.
Love that.
And you know what? You can be selfish and say, I do this because I want to be the best version of myself. And this is the best way that I can find of becoming a better person.
That's so true. I mean, ultimately, having these conversations, going through these tough situations, if I look back, it's like I'm literally so much better myself, let alone my relationship, going through this stuff. So much self reflection, so much growth and maturity through all these conflicts. If you keep running away from them, never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. And you're going to constantly run into the same conflicts over and over and over again, no matter what relationship you're in. So, yes, not every person is for everybody. There are certain conflicts where it's like, yep, you should get out. That's a red flag that is not for you. But when you find that right person, just know conflict is coming. You're going to have to battle through it consistently over and over again. Um, I wanted to ask you this question too. Should a couple's goal be a power couple? Is that for everybody? Should that be their goal, or who is this for?
I think it's for everybody who's willing to invest in their relationship.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes people marry for the wrong reasons. Like, I just wanted to leave home. It was an escape. Or, well, I was turning X, whatever, 35 years old and it was time. Or that makes it harder. It doesn't mean that it's not possible. Obviously, if you marry out of love, just because you want to be that person, then you can say you have a point of reference why you are with that person, right? It's easier, but I think it's possible for most people, unless we're talking about difficult situations like abuse or addictions. But for the most, I think it's for everybody. I love a quote from Manis Friedman. He says, a man and a woman naturally don't get along. They're very different. Our brains are different. We think differently. Women remember everything. That's why they can go back to the past. Oh, you did this 2 years ago. And the man goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. Because women are wired for justice. Men are wired to move forward, so they don't use energy in remembering. Their brains are not wired away. So we're very, very different. Men naturally will look at other women. But something happens to a man and a woman when you get married or you commit to a long-term relationship, a committed relationship. You stop being a man and a woman and you become husband and wife. And these are not my words. I'm quoting Manis Friedman, but I love this quote. And that process of becoming husband and wife, I think, is the best personal development school. And what does it mean you become husband and wife? It means that now you're learning to live with someone else. You're learning to communicate. You're learning to not default to always to your coping mechanisms, but to resolve situations, like you said. Because if you avoid, you start eroding that bond of trust. You don't want that. You want to build that bond of trust, not erode it. It also means that if you're, for example, a man, you stop looking at, or maybe not looking, but trying to be with other women because now you are a husband. It's a mindset shift, but it's so rewarding. And I wish more people will commit and stay and do the work to actually experience the power of that phase, that power couple phase.
I think something that is lacking a lot in this world is just self-awareness. I think people are really afraid to look in the mirror and say, hey, you know what? This isn't my strength. This is something I have to work on. I'm not great at this. I think a lot of people just run away from that and they don't want to face that self-awareness. They don't want to go through it with somebody. They don't want somebody to call it out on them, let alone them themselves. So they constantly run. I think one of the sexiest, I'll use that term, sexiest or most attractive qualities in somebody is self-awareness. I think if you have two
I agree.
people that you agree, if you have two people that are very self-aware, that is a relationship that's going to work.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire here for a moment.
Okay.
You are the author of a
Yes,
power couple book. Are you in a power couple relationship?
I believe so. I truly do. My kids laugh. The other day we were having supper, talking about time alone. We have this understanding, I won't call it a rule, but it's an understanding in our family that lunch, especially if the kids come from school earlier, lunch, everybody eats at their own time, and supper we have together. Because
Mm-hmm.
when they come at noon, because they're not in school, I mean, some of them are in higher education, so they come at different times and they are overwhelmed from their day. They want to eat on their own in their room, that's fine. So we were having supper, all the family together. And my husband says to them, have a daughter, 23 years old, and two boys. And my husband says, okay, guys, they're going to clean up. Mama and I are going for a walk. Okay, the weather was nice. um, and then my middle son, who's turning 18, he says, oh, the two of you with your power couple stuff again.
I
You know,
love it.
the other day, my daughter heard me tell my husband, we were in the kitchen, and I said to him, listen, we're entering two super busy weeks, and I can start feeling the overwhelmed. If we don't sit and plan together, this is not going to end well for me.
Mm,
So they see us operating as a power couple,
I
right?
love it.
When they
I
say, are
love
you
it.
a power couple? Do I love him dearly? But it's also what we do. It's not just how I feel, it's what we do. And you started the conversation talking about feelings, right? And feelings get created by our actions. And sometimes people after the honeymoon phase don't feel the same strength or the same intensity, sorry, of, the love is not as it was before. Well, the more you commit to the relationship, you can even create higher levels of connection. So it's not love that creates commitment at that phase, it's commitment that creates love.
That's super important because I don't think people realize that. I really think that's a really key statement that you just made there because I think people do think like, wow, this is fading. Maybe I shouldn't be with this person anymore. Maybe that means I should get out. But can you state that again, actually? Because I think that's really important.
Yeah. What I love about the engineering mindset is that you operate the way you need to make things work, whether it's a process or your relationship, whether you feel like it or not. Think about your child. Okay. Do you feel like getting up in the middle of the night to
Hell
change a
no. I've
diaper?
been
Hell
doing that
no.
every freaking night.
There you go. But you do
No.
it anyway, correct? Whether you feel
Correct.
like it or not. Why? Because you're invested,
Yeah.
right? You might be cursing in your mind. Oh, again, no,
I curse out
but you
loud.
do.
He doesn't know you.
So That's exactly what I'm talking about. If you
Mm,
commit to build this relationship and to show up, we were talking about showing up, to show up and to have the conversations, even when you don't feel like it, even when your partner is not your favorite person today, then that commitment rekindles the love. So when people say, I'm waiting to feel the love again, so I do what I need to do, no, it has to be the opposite direction. Don't wait for love to be committed at that phase. Commit, do what you need to do, even when you don't feel like it, because you committed, you are in a mission, and that will rekindle the love. So it's the opposite direction. Everything you invest in, you fall in love. So the misconception is that if I don't feel the love, things are over. No, it only means you need to invest more or
wow.
differently.
Wow. That is super interesting. I'm not sure I've really thought of it that way. I think most of us probably haven't. Like I said, a lot of us, once those feelings are gone, like you said, the intensity is kind of turned down a little bit. It's like they start questioning things. Maybe I should get out. Maybe it's not for me. And I want to state that I asked you if you were in a power couple relationship because for this reason, you said so, personally, I think when I think of power couple, I'm thinking a couple that lives somewhat of a lavish life. You got good jobs, you got the money, you got the cars, you got the house, you got all the material stuff that you think people would, become happy with. You stated the fact that you gave that up and now you're in a power couple relationship, which I think that's really important to say that you gave that up and now you're in a power couple relationship because I personally kind of like when I'm thinking power couple, I'm thinking of this couple that pulls up in their nice suit and dress and they're driving their Mercedes or whatever it is and it's just like they just
Not
got
yet.
back. Yeah, they got back from Italy and all that. You know what I mean? Like yeah, that could definitely be a power couple by all means, but that's not the only definition of a power couple. You put that stuff aside to make yourself happy. And I love how you said your husband supports you. That's definitely the sign of a power couple.
That's right. It's not your possessions. When I said power couple, I don't mean your financial situation or possessions. It has nothing. There's no correlation with that. In fact, it has everything to do on how you feel in your relationship and how you live it, how you experience each other. I experience my husband as my best friend, my confidant, my lover, as the father of my children. So it's more about how you experience each other and how much you create together,
Hmm.
right? Um, when you go for a walk together, what are you talking about? Are you creating ideas, visions together? We have what we call company retreats. Every few months, we go for a weekend and we plan. What else do we want to create? What's the next phase? In fact, the last company retreat was in April, and the book was written in the summer. This is the power, this is the creative power. Now, he had nothing to do with writing the book, he had everything to do with the vision.
So I recently had an interview with Dr. Jolie Hamilton, and one of the questions, so she this is completely different off topic a little bit. She talks about polyamory. She talks about relationships with multiple
Okay.
people. And I asked her, I said,
I saw that episode, by the way.
oh, you like it's
Heard it. Yes.
great episode. And one of the
Yes.
questions I asked her was like, how do you measure success from a polyamorous relationship? Right. And I'm you have a completely different mindset and or perspective, I think, on a relationship, somewhat similar, somewhat different. Um, I'm not hearing longevity from you either. Granted, you've been married for 26 years, but I'm not hearing necessarily longevity is the marker of success. It's the amount you create together. Would that be
Yes.
correct?
That's right. How you experience each other in and the kind of home you have built for each other.
Yeah.
Is it a home where I call it a dream factory, where you can hone and support my personal dreams, your personal dreams, our children's dreams, talking about success, about art. You say you're an artist. So my middle son is an artist. We call it the Michelangelo because he's really, really talented. And we happened to meet somebody over the weekend who's a very well-known artist. So now my husband is at his studio with my son to introduce each other. So a power couple builds a home that acts as a dream factory
I
where
love that.
there's room for everybody to grow without stifling each other, without one being at the expense of the other. Yes, we might say, well, this year we decided to focus on this, so perhaps the budget for this will be next year. But that's not stifling each other. That's working together, right? And that's what a power couple. So it's not about longevity, but there is an aspect, there's a time aspect because of the three phases of the relationship. In the beginning, it's the honeymoon phase where everything is beautiful. Then you start triggering each other. We usually look at that from year number 2 to year number 10. Most divorces happen around the year 7 to 10. And then if you do this could last forever, the power struggle, by the way. And sometimes people get so tired that they start living separate lives, but that's not a power couple. You have longevity, but far from being a power couple. These are like two roommates, right? Mm-hmm. So if you overcome the power struggle and you arrive to the power couple, inevitably will be after a few years, right? So there is that aspect of time, but you could have people, I've seen people marry for 50 years and they're far from being a power couple.
One quote that I heard you say recently in an interview is that it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. You're smiling there. That was like ding. I was just like I'm doing like work, I'm doing stuff, I'm listening to stuff, and that just kind of turned my head. I was like, whoa, okay. I don't think I've heard that before. But that makes complete sense. And I feel like that should just be the new quote. Forget 50-50, 100-100, because we
divorce
can all
is 50-50.
Hopefully I don't figure that one out.
That's
but right. But 100-100, it sounds like you're each giving the same amount of effort and investment, right? Like, how would you describe 100-100?
It's full accountability for each other. It's, in September we went away. We went to Toronto because I was competing in a speaking competition, inspirational speaking competition. So we left the kids and we told them we have a golden. And on the fridge, there is a calendar with who's responsible to walk every day at what time. I said, you are not just responsible for your time slot, you are responsible for all of them. If you see that your brother is missing his time slot, if you see that they're not home on time, you cover for them. So 100 means that I show up fully no matter what, even if you're not. And I might actually show up more when you can't. So even if I'm having an argument with my spouse and I see that my spouse is getting very triggered or emotional, showing up fully means that I don't go, well, that was your fault. That's on you. This is your trigger. Figure it out and then come to me. I will do whatever I can to help my spouse feel better and understand what's going on. So even helping the other one when I'm angry at you, but first and foremost, I'm your wife. So I'm not bailing because I'm angry at you. So that's what we're talking about. We're all responsible for each. We're not responsible for other people. We're only responsible for ourselves, but we're accountable. That's the right word. We're accountable and making sure that we're there for each other when needed, even if I'm angry, even if it's not my fault.
How much of that 100-100 is actually showing up for yourself? Like this kind of like a full circle moment back to the beginning of our conversation when we were talking about consistency, just continue to show up. And we talked about alone time and stuff like that. So how much of that 100-100 to be there in a partnership is actually you just being there for yourself and showing up for yourself?
It's the first pillar. So 100% is throughout the 4 pillars. What I showed you before was the pillar of the friendship, that I'm acting as a friend. I'm helping you even when I'm angry at you. That's a friend. That's the second pillar, the you. The first pillar is the me, meaning I take responsibility for my needs and happiness. So when I felt that void because I was misaligned in my career, I didn't use my husband as a punching bag. I didn't blame him. I took responsibility of figuring out what do I want with myself and why am I feeling that way. So the 100% is in all aspects of your relationship, or all the four pillars that are described in the book. We're practicing that 100%.
Yeah, I find your four pillars interesting. Let's hit on those real quick because you said it's me, you, and then it's our and us. So you just hit on me and you hit on you. Can you hit on real quick our and us?
Yes, our is like a partnership, like a business. It's what's our assets, our family, our vision, our money, um, our children. So, how do we manage this business as two equal partners, two shareholders? Everybody might have their roles and responsibilities, but we're both accountable. And how do we communicate? The three C's are communicate, coordinate, and collaborate to always increase the value of what's others. And increasing the value means that we grow what's our. Obviously, we grow our money, yes. I won't say we grow our children endlessly in the number of children, but we fulfill everybody's potential. We are like that dream factory.
Hmm.
So that's where all the practices of communication, all the practices of collaboration and coordination come into place. It's a very practical pillar. It's probably the most practical pillar of all the four. And it's how do we manage this life that we're sharing together so it's fulfilling for everybody. And we avoid disappointments as much as possible. It's obviously, it's not possible to completely be always happy, but to make sure that things don't fall between chairs. So that's the our. The as is, it's a much more spiritual pillar, is the you and me together. It's that unity. It's the intimacy, by all means, the physical intimacy, the emotional intimacy, the spiritual intimacy. And it's feeling like we are a unit and that this union is sacred. Now, for that to happen, we need to trust each other. We need to feel safe around each other. And then we have to stay physically intimate. That's something that I see a lot, that couples after years of marriage stop being physically intimate. Now, of course, to arrive to that us and have it flourish, you need to have the other three pillars in place. Because if I don't feel safe, if I have underlying resentment, I won't want to be intimate with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think another, like I said, I've been married for 2 years. So not there yet as far as longevity goes, but I don't have to imagine a lot of couples suffer with intimacy after years and years and years because it's the same person, same thing over and over and over again. How do you help couples through that? Knowing it's like for me personally, something you said, Esther Perel, and I also listen to Matthew Hussey as well, is kind of like seeing each other through new eyes, through new lenses.
I was going to say, it's not the same person.
Yeah. So explain.
It's first of all, it's not the same person because we are always evolving and changing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that rekindles love is that, and that belongs to pillar number 2, is that continuous quest to deepen your connection. And the way to do that is by knowing your partner more and more. I have this quote: you should never stop doing a PhD on your partner. And when you spend time together, when you talk, you always go, same as you did in the honeymoon phase when you were dating, you go into that quest to learn to know the other person, to listen, to ask questions. So the more we know each other, the deeper we know each other, the more we uncover about that person. And when you know how each scar they have, physically or emotionally, how each memory they share with you makes them who they are, where they've been, there's nothing more sexy than knowing someone so well and appreciating them for what they've been through and what they are creating with you and what they're giving you by supporting you and creating with you. When you see your partner have a meaningful conversation with your child, and you know that this is not easy for them, because, as an example, okay, I'm not talking about my husband. His father never did that, and his father hurt him. And you see him overcoming that and showing up for your son. your hormones, your love hormones go crazy.
So that's how I do. Okay.
So the personal development and self-awareness is sexy.
Yep. Such amazing points. I want to kind of interweave this slightly because I know you're also a career coach as well. One thing I personally can say about my relationship is that we both are career oriented. We like to succeed. We like to have goals, especially with our career and our jobs. And yes, finances is a part of that, right? We do want to be financially, we'll say healthy, we won't say wealthy, but healthy and live a good life and be able to afford the things that we want to do. We're very fortunate to be able to do that, but we are very career driven. So combining power couples and couples that are very career driven, I can see a lot of tension there. For people that are career driven, there are a lot of obstacles as far as time, anxiety, priorities. Like I said, finances, it's one of the main reasons. It's not the main reason that people get divorced. If you're into financial trouble, stuff like that. Um, what troubles do you see or are you familiar with couples that are trying to be power couples, but they are very career driven? Do you find them having specific set of like speed bumps or hurdles they have to overcome?
Yeah. So what happens is it's different triggers. Okay. So for women, and I'm one, like they're career driven, I'm very career driven. It's usually the guilt of the trigger is the guilt of not being fully dedicated to the family, if you might say, if that is important. Um, you know, because we are wired genetically to focus only on family, right? For men, it's the pressure of providing more and growing so they can provide more and more and more that creates that anxiety, and that usually is expressed as anger.
Mm,
And then if we are not aware, as you said, we will experience each other in a very frightening way, because a woman who feels guilty is insecure. And then if she feels insecure, she feels needy, but then she sees her husband being angry and stressed. And maybe for the husband, it's a sign that I'm advancing in my career. But for the woman, that's a sign that you are not safe. You are not in control. So we start getting triggered. What's really, really important is to see the opportunity when two people are so career driven, is to see the power couple and the energy invested in the relationship as the catapult for your career.
mm, I like that.
Because I did a career change. Then I also opened the coaching academy. Then I wrote a book. All of that was possible because I felt very safe and supported in my relationship. Right. So rather than seeing the investment in the relationship as a commodity, I don't have time for this. We actually want to see it as, thank God I have my spouse. Thank God I will go home and share how I feel, and we're going to figure this out together. And through that power union, we can actually create more. It's very difficult to make a bold move in your career when you don't have the support of your spouse. We have actually, when I did a career change, I knew I was going down in salary to go up. I knew it was temporary, but we were willing to do that. And we worked together. We sat and we said, okay, this is the time frame we can afford it. This is what we're willing to sacrifice in our lifestyle. And this is what we're willing to not sacrifice, non-negotiable. So the parameters were very clear. And that was important to avoid frustration. Like him saying, so what are you doing? Are you growing your business? When are you going to have some money coming in? Because we knew we had that clear expectations. We were working together in that sense. Then there were times when the coaching academy was full working and I was teaching so many courses that he actually took a sabbatical because he needed it. But the only way he was able to do that is because I could support financially. So, and from that, he actually catapulted his career.
Hmm.
So it's very difficult to succeed career wise and be happy at the same time when you see a relationship as a commodity or as an obstacle or taking time away, that I don't have this time, rather than how can we support each other. If there is communication, if you create a vision of where everybody wants to go and where you want to go as a family, if there is that communication, then you can work together.
How important? I was going to ask you something else, but now I'm curious. How important is it for a couple to have a vision down the road? Is it really important? If you don't have a vision, maybe you should sit down like this weekend and say, what do we want in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Do you think that's really important to have as a power couple?
Yes, in the book, under the hour pillar, I have the template there for the vision. It's like a business. You need to have a vision. Now, a vision is not a detailed plan. It's where are we going? Where do we want to see each other? What are we aiming for? And then as a couple, as a family also, and then individually. There has to be room, because clarity is a very strong force. And we underestimate its power. If we know, if we're clear, if we converse and we help each other and we share our objections and our fears and our insecurities and how we can help each other, I can only see that this union can give you more wings and energy in your career. Problem is that young couples that are very driven, they get married, they make a V on that. Okay, it's a status I already acquired. And now they go focus on their career and they forget to invest in the relationship because they don't know it's needed. Hmm. They thought the mom, that's okay. I feel great about her. She feels great about me. We're good. Let's just focus on our careers. And then when the honeymoon phase fades away, you could start, right? You're not under the influence of that dopamine and endorphins. You can start getting frustrated with each other. But now you're so focused on your career that you forgot the best practices to make your relationship a springboard for you to succeed in your career. So ideally, we want to teach young couples how to avoid divorce before they even get married.
Oh, absolutely. How often with this vision would you sit down and look at it and perhaps adjust it if things have changed? Because I can see either being beneficial. I can see it being beneficial as in like, nope, this is kind of the vision. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep going at it. I know things are tough, but if we could just keep sludging through, we can make it. Or would you recommend a couple sit down and say, hey, things are different now. Things didn't turn out the way we want. Let's go ahead and adjust. Let's adjust our vision. Like what would you recommend, and how often would you recommend a couple perhaps sitting down and looking at their future and making adjustments?
I think you want to create your vision and keep it as long as everybody is happy. But we're always changing. And what we want today might change. We don't always want the same things. Yes, our core values don't change, but other values do change. So I think that the vision needs to be revisited every time one of the couple says, something doesn't feel right. I'm not sure this is what I want anymore. So as long as you're both in the same page and you both feel aligned, then that's fine. Sometimes we can forget, so it's good to revisit. I think it's really great to revisit when the year ends. What did we do this year? It was incredible. Mm-hmm. But if one of them says, I think we need to have a meeting because I don't feel aligned anymore. So maybe we said that, I don't know, whatever we saved is going to be invested in for our pension. And now one of them feels that they rather close their mortgage. So let's revisit the vision again, because somebody is not aligned anymore with that vision.
Yeah. That's a great advice. I appreciate that. I'm looking for your opinion on this as well. So we're talking about careers and power couples and success. One thing I think it's kind of important to me, but I'm wondering how important it is leaving work at work. So when work hours are done, it's kind of like it's done. You close your computer. I can put my focus on my family and give like my full focus on them. I have a little baby right now, but at some point I'm going to be picking him up from school or bringing him to baseball practice or whatever. Like I want to be involved in that stuff. But to be a power couple that's also very much career driven, how important is it to leave work at work, or is it okay to sometimes let it bleed into the evening or be up late because you got to respond to emails and stuff like that? What are your thoughts on that situation?
I think it all depends on how you both feel about that. In fact, I would suggest you ask that conversation, you ask those questions to your spouse.
Hmm.
Because let's say you prefer, for your mental health, you want to review your emails before you go to sleep. Okay. Because waking up in the morning and seeing that list overwhelms you to levels that you don't want to experience. If you come to her and say, I was with that mindset that work is work. Once I close the computer, I don't open until the next day. But as of now, this is creating a lot of stress for me. I'm not saying it's ideal, but it's not really working. So at least until I work on myself on that, I would love to have half an hour of me checking emails before we say we're going to go watch a movie or we're going to bed. I think that if you explain why you're doing what you're doing and not living into the her thinking you don't like to spend time with her, it's great. She might actually say, you know what? I'm so glad you brought that up because for me, it's the same. That's easier when you're two career driven people because you understand each other. But
Mm-hmm.
also because you understand each other, you might actually help each other not do that. You might say, I know you're feeling stressed that you haven't seen your emails. We can do this. We're both going to help each other, you know, be okay regardless of what's going on tomorrow morning, just being together. So whatever works for you and not being afraid to change it. I'm not a huge rules person. I'm more of a believer on talk about it, share how you feel and what makes sense for both of you. I'm not saying you can't live without boundaries and rules. Definitely you can. You need to. Boundaries keeps you safe. Like my husband said, why do we have brakes in our car? So we can drive fast. Boundaries keeps you safe. But it's not about is it right or wrong. It depends on the couple. You need to figure out on your own what works for you.
I love that. I mean, that goes for so many things, not just this whole thing that we're talking about now. That's for so many things. Every couple is different. So stop comparing yourself to all these other people because that's just
Or follow the rules you are being told this is a must.
yeah. Yeah.
But also, you know why? Because when you're having that conversation, this goes beyond whether you're opening your computer at night or not. This is an opportunity for you to explain why you need to open the computer, to say if that's the case, how you feel about it, what is your stress, and then sharing a deeper conversation. And that's how you get to know each other and you get to understand each other's triggers. And when you know each other's triggers, you become the best friend when you don't step on those triggers on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So it's always about the deeper connection.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I mean, I imagine even after 26 years, perhaps you're still even figuring out triggers, or maybe you've triggered them all and you already know. But that's one of the things where we're still figuring out triggers, and we're not only are we figuring out triggers, we're also diving deeper into why and how do
That's right.
we alleviate that. And it's just like, for instance, let's just say she can do a good job of perhaps avoiding those landmines, but I can do a good job of understanding those landmines, why they're there, and perhaps really like lessening how impactful they are,
That's
it's like
right.
it's a two-way street.
That's the
Um,
100.
yeah, so you go.
Your responsibility to work on yourself and heal yourself. Her is, I'm going to be the best friend that I can be for him. I'm going to give him the time he needs to heal it and try to be as understanding as possible, as long as I don't become his punching bag.
Mm-hmm.
Or as long as he doesn't, um, what's the word that I'm looking for? Put that responsibility on me, right? If I see him taking responsibility, then I want to support him.
Mm.
We don't um, delegate. That's the word I was looking for. We don't delegate our happiness to our partners. So if I
Yeah.
see my partner is not delegating, if I see my partner is taking responsibilities, being accountable for his own triggers, then I'll be as accommodating as I can be.
Right. Yeah. I want to hit on this subject because I think we've danced around it a little bit, but I could be wrong. With you being in a power couple relationship and working with power couples, do you see couples that are successful put reoccurring meetings and or things on like a schedule? Like, hey, on this date we're going to talk about this. Perhaps every 2 weeks we come back and we talk about finances, goals, or the kids, or whatever it is. Like, is that something you're familiar with? Do you work with reoccurring, we'll just say, meetings of a relationship? It's almost like intertwining like what a work schedule looks like, but into a relationship. And it's a commitment to come back to things and continuously talk about things. Is that something you deal with often?
Not sure I understood the question. You're asking me if I see that in couples that they have these recurring meetings or that they come to me.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to know if you see them in successful couples. Like, let's just say, for instance, on every Sunday we talk about finances to make sure we're on the same track, or every Monday night we sit down with a glass of wine and we talk about our goals and how the
Yes.
last week was and stuff like that. So you're shaking your head, yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of the communication. You want to have scheduled communications like weekly, ideally every Sunday. You want to have a weekly date. You can have, monthly meetings. I don't check on them if they're doing that. When they stop working with me, I don't
What
follow
would you
up.
recommend for someone that's like, hey, like that sounds like a good idea. How often should I do this? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, so in the book it's very clear laid out there. You have the weekly meetings to coordinate the week, where you talk about what's going to happen this week, from meal plan to who's picking the kids to what is important for you. So you work as a team. You have the weekly meetings. Then you want to have a weekly date, and that's just for the two of you to connect, not to talk about logistics. You could have a monthly meeting where you review the month and what's happening. And that's not a must. That's not something I do, but we do have the weekly meetings. And then you have what we call on demand. So on demand means that if we're entering a very busy period, or we're having too many events happening in the next month, like I told my husband, we need to sit. That's when one of the partners says, I need help. I know that in August I was twice a speaker at an event, and I had the book launch preparation and the speaking competition and launching the new website, revamp my website. So it was so much in my head. And I said, okay, we need to sit, we need to plan. And you know what we did actually? That was so fun. We went on a restaurant. So when we have these on demand meetings, we prefer to go out, not do it at home. Not because our kids are young or anything like that. It's just that I find that when we go out, you are more in a creative mode and more in a romantic mode. You are more in a embracing mode. When you're
Mhm.
home, you're very practical. Okay, we need to talk about the week, like we do that every week, right? Okay, we need to talk about what's happening this week, who's picking, who's doing, who's. We have so many drivers, and we have two cars. We have four drivers in the house, two cars, so we have to coordinate. One is in university, one is in college. It's not the same in Quebec. One is in high. So how do we coordinate? Working from home, working at the office. So we have to sit. But when we do on demand meetings, because we have to see how we're going to handle a period that is coming, we go out because we're less in a practical mode when we go out, and we are more in, we're nicer to each other. We're more in an emotional conversation, but also planning. And at the same time, because we're in a restaurant, we try to be very seductive with each other. So we're more likely to be less, okay, let's just do this. We're more likely to just really smile at each other, and I don't know how to explain it.
Less distracted too. When you're home, there's so
Less
many
distractive,
distractions.
so we become more creative, and we open from planning to deeper conversations, because it's like you're on a date.
Mm.
When you're on a date, when I am in a restaurant with my husband, I'm wearing a different hat than when I'm in the house. I'm more in a
Yeah, true.
active. So we find that going out for these kind of meetings works so well. Not that it doesn't work well at home, but they're much more productive. So what we did the other day, we went to a restaurant and they said, we don't have room. We only have room in the bar. We said, well, we have a table ready, but the kitchen is too overloaded. We can only order food for you in 45 minutes. And I said to the waiter, this is perfect. I had a notebook with me, in fact, and I had markers and a pen because we were planning the next month. So I said, you know what? Him and me, we first need to do a business meeting. So that's perfect. Give us a table. We'll just order drinks, no food. When the kitchen is ready, come to us. We're going to order the food. So we first had a business meeting. My husband had a beer. I had a Diet Coke. We had the business meeting. And then when the waiter says, okay, we're ready for you to order, I put my notebook aside, and now we order food and we had like a date. It was just perfect. Um, yeah.
I mean, for me personally, that sounds like a very healthy and forward-looking relationship, one that's built on success and communication. I can imagine there's a lot of people that heard that. It's like, ugh, I don't want that. I don't want to schedule stuff like that. I'm not bringing a notebook to a date. There's probably a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard of that
It
before.
wasn't a
Like,
regular that if we are going on a date, I won't do that.
yeah, true,
It
true.
was intentionally a business meeting. We
And I
had
think
to talk business, but we had first the time to talk business without eating, just focus on that. And then it turned into a regular date. Now, when we go on dates, I don't bring a notebook. Don't get me wrong. But this was a business meeting that we said we're going to do it outside.
But I think that is something that many of us don't think of or don't even think of bringing into the relationship is perhaps the occasional business meeting. It is a partnership. And I think that is just so important because it's not just date after date after date after date. It doesn't work like that. You have to have these tough conversations. You have to figure out how do you handle X, Y, Z? Because that's what life is just going to throw you so many curveballs. So if you can actually have business meetings with your actual partner on top of the dates mixed in, and that sounds like a recipe for success. And I'm really happy to hear like all this information is in your book. That is just, I mean, this book is like a gold mine here for power couples for sure. I mean, for any couple, especially couples that are looking to grow together and invest more into each other and become successful. No matter what success looks like to them. So yeah, this is like I said, this is a gold mine of information in this book.
Thank you.
Genuinely appreciate you taking time out of your day to share so much of your learnings and so much of how you coach and how you coach with your clients and how you communicate. Just the learnings and experience is absolutely wonderful. Clearly, you are doing so many things right, and I'm really glad you gave us some insight with that. So I really appreciate that. I want to give people an opportunity to learn where they can follow you, find you, work with you, get your book, all the good stuff. So please share that with everyone.
Yeah. So we've been talking about power couple. So the easiest is to go to becomingapowercouple.net, and everything will be there.
That's amazing. And I'll link everything in the show notes.
Thank you.
As we wrap this up, is there any other words of advice or any final statement that you want to make?
I would say what I believe. I believe that our romantic relationship is the most important relationship we have. It's interesting. People say the most important relationship you have is with yourself.
Hmm.
I'm like, for me, it's with my partner, not because I like to, ignore myself. By all means, no. It's because that it is through my partner that I grow the most. It's difficult to see my own blind spots when it's just me. I think that this is the relationship that triggers you and forces you in a good way to become the best version of yourself. I don't believe that we want to sacrifice that and put the kids first. I think the partner should come first always.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's also a relationship that we can course correct. And you can course correct your relationship with your parents and with your children, of course, but you can't change their status. They're still your parents and your children. You don't choose them. Your partner you chose for a reason. Together to become the best version of yourself. And as you do so, build such a powerful synergy that will bring a ripple effect in the world. And I think this is the most holy journey that we can embark on. And because it's not necessarily the easiest task to do, the reward is so big.
I know why you spoke at an inspirational competition, if you will, that you mentioned. That is very inspirational. That is awesome. I love hearing that, and I can't wait to go see my wife tonight, go see my kid tonight, and be like, this conversation I had was pretty damn awesome. So,
Thank you so
so
much, Ryan. I celebrate all the work you do and the goodness you bring and the
thank
different
you.
perspectives you bring.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And as I hope I get to see you in just a few weeks in
Me
beautiful
too.
Montreal
Yeah,
for the
I'm going to get
Christmas
into
season.
making a list of the best places in the city.
Well, hopefully we meet soon in person. I want you to sign the book for me. That would be absolutely incredible. So, yeah.
You're going to have a book. Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm going to
Yes.
sign your book.
Love it. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. You're welcome back anytime. There's so many more avenues we can dive into, but this was an amazing start. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Ryan, for having me.
Absolutely.